Alright, so today I'm going to talk to you about how I change my infusion set for use with the cortisol pump. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to fill a new medication reservoir, which is this right here. This is the medication reservoir. It's a Medtronic 3 milliliter reservoir for Paradigm pumps. Right, and we have 2 vials of Solu-Cortef. This is just plain powder. It is not the Acto vials, and I'll show you what that means in a minute. I have sterile water, which is what I use to mix with the Solu-Cortef. I have alcohol prep pads. I have tape for after I change my infusion set, and I left my syringe downstairs, so I will be right back. One moment. Alright, so I've got just regular 1 cc, 1 ml insulin syringes that I use, and I'll tell you about that in just a moment. So let's see here. First things first, the Solu-Cortef. This is 100 milligrams of hydrocortisone for injection, right? It says here for intramuscular or intravenous use. Now with the cortisol pump, it's subcutaneous. It's fine. It works really well. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to put 1 ml of the sterile water into each of these vials. And what that does is gives us 100 milligrams per 1 ml of solution. So there's what the bottle looks like. You can see it's just got a little white powder in the bottom. Now this 1 ml with 100 milligrams is important for a reason. So I don't know how many of you are familiar, but if you look at an insulin syringe, it goes up to 100 units. So 1 ml equals 100 units on an insulin syringe. And this is how insulin is measured and dosed in units. And so we're just going to transfer that over to our Solu-Cortef, this idea of the one unit is 1 unit of dosage. So basically what happens when I mix this medication up is that I end up with 2 mLs of Solu-Cortef that has 1 milligram per 1 unit on this insulin syringe. This is important because the pumps also dose based upon this measurement. 1 unit of insulin in a syringe is also 1 unit of insulin in the pump, and so for us, for use with cortisol, it's 1 milligram per 1 unit. This makes it so easy to adjust dosages and all that stuff, so this is why I do this. Some people who use a cortisol pump use the Acto vials, which has 2 mLs of fluid per 100 milligrams of Solu-Cortef, and so if they use that when they program their pump, they have to have the dosage delivered by the pump would be double what I would take, but only because the volume is different. So they're only getting half as much medicine per unit as me, because I do what we call 1-to-1 solution. So basically what we do is we just want to make sure that everything's really clean. So wash your hands before you do this, and clean the top of the sterile water container, and we're going to clean the tops of these little Solu-Cortef vials, and we're going to try not to touch the rubber bung in the bottles with our fingers while we're doing this. And so we're just going to draw up 100 units, 1 ml, of water in this insulin syringe. And I live at high altitude, so I find it's easy for me to you know, I add a little air into this, and it's usually really easy to get the water to come out and fill the syringe all the way. So we're just going to go. And I use insulin syringes because they tend to be a lot easier to gauge when you have the right amount. They're very precise because, you know, they're used with insulin, which you want to be very precise. So you draw it down to where that 100, that line is, and there you go. That's 1 ml. And we're going to put that into the first vial. And just insert it in there and push the water in, and then shake it up good. And we're just going to kind of let it sit to settle for a few minutes while we do the second vial. Again, don't touch the needle, don't touch the tops of the bottles with your fingers. We're trying to keep everything not necessarily sterile, but you know, we're going to do our best. It's pretty impossible to have a, you know, do a sterile thing at home when you're just doing it like this, but it doesn't necessarily need to be sterile. It just needs to be very clean. So there we go. There's our second ml of fluid, and we're going to put that into this second bottle. Oops. These Solly-Cortef things have a little special rubber stopper that sometimes is difficult to get the needle to go through and down to the bottom, and I'm inside the rubber stopper, so that's not good. There we go. Alright, so there's our second vial of medication. I'm going to shake it well, and I'm just going to kind of let it sit there to settle some of the bubbles out. The bubbles, because I live over 5,000 feet, even if I let these vials sit until all the bubbles settle out and then fill my reservoir with it, I'm going to end up having bubbles in my reservoir by the end of a few days, just because the air pressure up here is less, and so any dissolved, you know, oxygen or gases that are in this fluid are going to kind of, you know, make their way out of solution and into the vial. I just check it every once in a while, and if it looks like there's a big bubble, I'll fix that, but I will show you that in another video. So basically what we have here now is 2 mLs of Solly-Cortef. In the vials, we have our reservoir. This is a Medtronic reservoir. So basically this is the actual reservoir here. You can see that's where, you know, the little rubber stopper thing is for the medication to come out. This is a 2 needle, I don't know what they call it, but it's the thing that we use to fill the reservoir. Basically, this end of the reservoir, the needle goes inside of the reservoir, and then the cap of Solly-Cortef fits right in here. There's a little needle there that sometimes you have to kind of like wiggle it around to get it in right. But there we are. So it fits just like that, and now we can draw the medicine out of the Solly-Cortef vial and into the reservoir. So there we go. And we'll do the same thing with the next one. And I don't fill my reservoir with 3 mLs. I mean, I could, technically it'll hold 3 mLs, but I only use about 30 milligrams of Solly-Cortef per day. And so these 2 mLs of medication will last me 5 days, and I don't really like to mix medicine and have it sitting in a vial for more than that. Some people do. I just personally don't, because I've noticed that by the end of the 6th day or so I start to feel bad, and I don't like to waste medication, and I just think that it's possible that, you know, just from body heat and stuff, that it'll start to lose some of its potency, but I have no scientific proof of that. This is just how I do it. So then once you have the medication in there, you can see there's our 2 mLs of fluid in there. We just push up on this little plunger until drops come out of the top of the little filling needle. And so there we go. And I just try to make sure that if I can get any of these bubbles that might be in there to go up to the top. And there we go. And just give it another push. So there's our full reservoir. And you take this little thing out. This is the plunger. It just basically is like, makes it like a syringe. So we take that out. So there's our full reservoir. Now, this is the pump that I wear. This is a Medtronic insulin pump. This is a Paradigm 723 pump. Right, and I have a little clip there that I can clip it to my pants, and I have this lovely little sticker that is on it that I ordered from Pump Peels. That is artwork that my brother did, and it just says on here, Solu-Cortef 100 milligrams per 1 ml, not insulin, not diabetic. And it also says, in case of emergency, do not remove. I highly recommend doing this. If you do get a pump, always make sure you label your pump that it is not insulin, because if you're in an accident and they see this pump on you, they're going to give you a bolus of it thinking it's insulin, and then they're going to take it off of you because they don't want you to go into shock if you're wearing an insulin pump. So yeah, so basically that's the pump. So the way this works is, first thing that we have to do is we have to rewind the pump. So we're going to go to this where it says reservoir and set. We're going to click the button, and we're going to go to reservoir setup, and we're going to click that, and it says to remove from body, so mine is disconnected. I'm just going to push the button, and you can hear it. It's rewinding. The way the pumps work is there's a little screw drive in here. You can see it. It's going down. When the reservoir is in, slowly the screw drive pushes up. So it pushes up just like this little part pushed up on the bottom of the reservoir, and very precisely and slowly delivers medication through the tubing. So we're going to let that rewind, and we're going to hook up our infusion set. This is a Medtronic Mio infusion set. This is a 9mm cannula, which is the length of the needle. It's actually a plastic cannula, but there's a little needle inside, and we'll talk about that. And it has 32-inch tubing. So basically, we're just going to take the protective covering off. There's a plastic thing on it. We're going to open the lid, and we're going to peel off the label from the bottom. So that's what keeps it all sealed and nice. We're going to leave this stuff on for right now. We're going to undo the tubing, like so. It's wrapped around inside there. So there's our tubing. And so what we're going to do, this is the end of the tubing that connects to the reservoir. We're going to plug that in just like so and twist until you hear it click. Now we're going to insert this into the pump. It goes into this hole in the pump. You just slide it in there, and then you twist it until you feel it click in place. So now you can see the reservoir is inside. Now what we have to do is we have to prime the pump. Basically what that means is that we're going to engage the screw drive until it comes up and it engages with the bottom of the plunger in the reservoir so that it starts to deliver medication. And then also we're going to make sure that we fill all this tubing with medication. And so we want to have medication actually coming out of the needle tip before we plug it into our body, because you don't want to be spending several hours getting nothing but air from your tubing going into your infusion site, because you'll feel terrible and you'll say this pump isn't working, and you would be right, it isn't actually working. So here we go. We're going to prime the pump. It asks if you're disconnected, and you just say yes, and then you hold down the act button, and you'll hear it start making a beeping sound. And that means that the screw drive is engaging, and it does that so that you know not to have it connected to your body. With Solu-Cortef, it's not so important because it really wouldn't hurt you if you accidentally gave yourself, 10 or even 20 units of Solu-Cortef. Ideally, we don't want to do that, but if you did it with insulin, you could go, into a low blood sugar state. So that's why they have all these protections in place, but it's good. So. But it's not as dangerous with Solu-Cortef as it is with insulin, some of these things. Despite what your endo might tell you, Solu-Cortef really isn't dangerous, as long as you're on the right dose. It's not nearly as dangerous or scary as insulin pump, which is why I don't understand why they're so resistant to doing this. Okay, so now that you hear the slower beep, that means it's filling the tubing. So we'll see drops come out the end there. There we are, see drops coming out the end of that. Alright, so then we're going to hit escape. It's filled 10 units of our Solu-Cortef, which is 10 milligrams, into the tubing. and it asks, do you see drops at the end of tubing? Yes. All right. So now we're at the point where we're going to connect the cannula to the body. I want to explain to you a little bit about what this cannula is. Okay, so the first thing that you have to remember is there's a little blue needle cover that is on the infusion set, and we're going to actually, you can see that there's like a little blue needle cover. We're going to pull that off. Try not to touch the needle. Whoops, it's actually quite slippery. Now, one thing that I like to do when I pull off this paper that's covering the adhesive is I like to hold this tubing down with my thumb, because I've actually gone to peel the paper off and pull the infusion set apart, and once that happens, it's ruined and you have to start over. So we just pull this paper off, being careful not to touch the needle. You can actually pull the paper off before you do the needle cover. Some people probably do that. It doesn't really matter if you're really careful. You don't touch the needle. Now, this Mio set is an all-in-one, which means it is an inserter and infusion set in one. So this little plastic gadget that it's still housed in is going to help us insert this infusion set properly. So what you do, if you look on the back, there's a little thing there. You can see the end of the needle there. You just pull on these two little wings until you hear it click. And so now you see there's this little bit sticking out the bottom, and there's the infusion set is like pulled down inside. It's like in a little cup, and there's two places, one here and one here, where your thumbs naturally will fit, and that is what you're going to do, where you're going to hold it as you put it on your body. You have to choose your spot, and then you're going to squeeze these two spots, and that will make the needle engage. It like releases this plastic. It is very quick. It inserts the needle into your skin, and the adhesive presses onto your skin. And so, yeah. So what we're going to do from right now is we're going to clean up a spot, and I will show you how I insert this infusion set. We're going to use an alcohol pad. Alright, so I should have had my husband help me with this, but he's not here right now, so I'm going to try to do the best I can. Maybe if I do this in the chair, I can make sure that I know at least where I am so that you can see how I do this. So I'll use the chair as a reference that way. Alright, so I can take this alcohol pad, and I'm going to choose my spot, which I'm going to actually do like right here on this area of my back. That is like your love handle area. You can see there's like I'm kind of fluffy, so I have this little bit of fat there. You want to put it into fat. You don't want to be inserting it into muscle, because you won't get a good absorption. It'll bleed, and the medicine won't get absorbed into your body. So basically we're just going to clean that really good. Then we're going to grab the infusion set. Pump. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hold the tubing up the way that I want it to be facing, which I want it upwards, and I'm going to take my infusion set here, and I'm going to place it on this spot on my love handles there where I want the infusion set to be, which is just about right there, and then I'm going to squeeze. You hear the click. It's in. I'm just going to push in on it a little bit for a few seconds until I'm sure that the adhesive is holding, which I think it is. I'm going to just carefully pull this part of the infusion set away, and there it is. You can see it's in my back right there. And so now that we've got it in there, what we need to do is this. So now that we've taken this out, you can see there was this little metal needle was inside of a plastic cannula. The plastic cannula is now in my skin, held in place by this little plastic button with adhesive around it. So the next step is you have to fill the cannula, because when you pull the needle out, it leaves a gap. There's air inside the cannula. So you hit the ACT button, and it'll say fill cannula, and so then you push the button for with whatever amount of liquid your endocrinologist tells you to fill the cannula with. Generally, I use 0.7 mLs to fill a 9mm cannula, just because I like to have enough medication to fill the cannula and a little bit to come out and kind of wash out any tissue or blood that might be in the tip of the cannula. That prevents it from occluding and not delivering your medication. So that's basically it. The only other thing that I'm going to do is that I like to use a piece of this tape. It's called Hypafix, and it's one of the only tapes that the adhesive doesn't really bother me. It's about, I think it's the exact same kind of tape that is actually on the infusion set itself. And so I'm just going to put this directly over my infusion set, mostly because it's warm this time of year and I sweat a bit, and if I sweat too much then the tape just kind of, you know, comes loose, and I don't want to knock this loose. I want this to stay in. So I usually do this the day, like I'll take a shower first and then I will change out all of my stuff. And so basically I'm just going to try to do this myself. I usually have my husband do this, but he's not here. He is at a soccer game. So just going to carefully put the tape over the entire infusion set and make sure that it is taped down firmly. So there it is. Done. I hope that you found this useful and informative, and I will be back with more videos in the future, and we'll talk more about cortisol pumping. Thank you.